Oh, I mean, I gotta go with Beyonce. I mean, hello.
Can never be
Diva,
wrong with a Beyonce
give
song.
me Diva, give me Formation, all that. So yeah, I can't choose just one Beyonce song, but like the whole catalog.
Ooh, ooh. Let's get in formation. Fit for 26.
Mhm.
We're gonna co-have that song.
There it
Let's
is.
get in
Okay,
formation.
ladies, now let's get in formation.
Yes. Yes. As Brooke would say.
I we wanted to sort of get started this evening's conversation about getting financially fit for 2026 by just sort of introducing our guests. So, Brooke, if you could just tell us a little bit about who you are, and especially, I think if you could help us understand like what your financial path has kind of been like, and maybe what we can learn from you on that score.
Yeah, so my name is Brooke Brown. I am 36 years old, and I think that's important because I'm not super young, but I'm also not, older as
Ah, watch it there. Watch it. Watch it.
I know. I'm not as seasoned. I'm not as experienced as some people might consider someone who is in this space. But I have a lot of wealth of knowledge to give. My path to personal finance was by way of being self-taught essentially, and also having really important figures in my life. Naomi, who is my sister, being that kind of exemplar of what to do to get the deal done, what to do when it comes to thinking about negotiating your salary and all the levers that you can pull when it comes to personal finance. One interesting part about my story is that I had a debt journey. I took out student loans for college, and in addition to that, I had consumer debt. So I had medical bills. I had a tow truck charge that led go into collections. I had credit card debt, and it was by way of understanding that debt really eats away at your ability to build wealth. That I got it together. I, was aggressive at it, and I paid off about $22,000 worth of consumer debt in a little under 2 years. So I was aggressive, and I was like, we're getting this done, And then after that, I was able to kind of make some really pivotal milestones when it comes to my own wealth building journey. I bought my first home at 29 years old. I have all these kind of different experiences with my own managing my own wealth, right? And then I took a pivot from working in media, which I did for about 8 years, to then working in personal finance, or not personal finance, but finance in general. I'm in banking now. So I took a career pivot because I wanted to understand how institutions make decisions on behalf of the people that they are in charge of giving important wealth building products. So that's
Yeah,
where I
for
am
sure.
now. And I have a platform, What Brooke Spent, where I discuss all those things. So there you go.
What Brooke spent. We love it. Yeah, well, you know, not to sound like an older lady about how proud I am, but you know, I wonder where she gets it from. No, no,
You've
but
definitely paved the path, paved the way for me for sure.
yeah, but you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, right? So in as much as I've never been one to take credit for other people's success, but it's just as nice to see the things that you say to people and they take it and run with it. And she's, exceeded what and if only, right? I know that people poured into me and you just try to pass that on because I was like, oh, if someone would have told me this sooner, I would be, further along. And so to see that in Brooke, that's happening, is really great. And as it relates to our Her Corner members, I think a lot of them can see themselves in you and have worked in either are still working in some capacity for someone else and working for themselves and showing how do you do that and that it is actually possible. And I also, I firmly believe in that I have things of value that I can teach younger people, but they have things of value that they can teach me.
Mhm.
And our community, I don't want us to be so, oh, we've done years of this and that, and we know all of anything, because things are changing so rapidly,
Yeah.
with technology and the what is available.
Yeah,
Um,
but what I will say, what I love about Her Corner is that, the brand is steeped in transparency, which is something that I also try to encourage people when they're talking about personal finance, right? So money, right? Oh, big scary taboo, but really, if more of us talked about the resources that we're using, if we talked about the relationships that we're building and the networking that we're doing, that could lead to greater strides in our own personal journeys as well as the collective. So transparency is definitely important. And I think also too, what Her Corner encourages is that real world strategy, which I think, it's good to talk about, what moves you can make in theory, but it's nice to be able to say that, I've walked the walk and here's the way.
right. And step by steps. No, I appreciate that. But and also, to that point, I think it's very important to have things that people can actually implement at their own comfort level and rhythm, because I could tell you to wake up in the morning and go through your finances and you're a night person, and that's just not going to work on, just on a very basic level, right? I need to make sure that we can be adaptable to what that particular founder is experiencing in that moment, right? Because
Sure.
I try to be like work on the business and not in the business all the time, but sometimes you got to roll up your sleeves and jump in there and get it, and then okay, come back out. And I
Mhm.
also don't want finance, money, spreadsheets, Excel. It's not the boogeyman.
Mhm.
We don't need to feel like, fortunately, there's a lot of technology, that has improved from when I started. So that does give you a little bit of an assist,
Mhm.
but it's only as good as the information that you put into it. And it's only as good as how regularly you update that information and how regularly you see is that information working for you. And you get this data. Our founder, Frederick Irwin, was very big on data as it related to helping members in Her Corner. And I understood it and thought and like, oh, I get it. And I even understand it more and didn't realize that I was a data person too, because I was always looking at my numbers, always looking at it down to December 31st. I'm like, am I going to meet that date? Am I going to meet that target? So I think, um, Brooke did a good job. And Maggie, if you were asked me why this was important, right now, I think too often we get so focused as founders on the business and our numbers and what we're doing in our sales that we neglect the person.
Mhm.
Very much, we have these tried and true things to put your mask on first. And I say this in a lot of different areas, but I think it's important for us to make sure that as a person, because who knew when you go to a bank, they're looking at your credit as well as try as you use that to establish the credit of your business. And
Mhm.
so if you've done all this and put all this money and everything flows through the business and you have a savings account for the business or, all these different things that you can utilize but don't utilize them for yourself. It's that balance that you need, or else, it's not helpful for you to execute any real winning strategy.
Hmm. It's interesting that you pointed out that everyone has their own unique approach to money management, right? And no, there's no wrong way, right?
Mhm.
When you get into the advice, the personal finance advice that's out there, I mean, there's not really much new under the sun. There's about maybe 10 levers that you could put, right? Push. There's mindset, there's your earning potential, or it's debt management, it's savings, philanthropy, like pick your flavor, right? And then from there, get excited about your one area and then branch out when you're feeling more comfortable, when you got your legs under you. So I think that that's something that is important is thinking through what makes your heart sing when you're talking about money. So there you go.
When you say like step one, get in the mindset, what does
Mhm.
that mean for us?
So there's one guiding mindset that that was unique to my journey, which was so at the time, okay, I'm in all this debt, and I'm doing things. I'm combing through my like credit card statement, and I'm thinking through like, why did I make that decision? Why did I make that decision to charge XYZ thing instead of just waiting, saving, doing whatever? And I found that there was a lot of people pleasing, and so what I had to do is tell myself I am willing to grow in this journey of trying to get my money together. But in that journey, right, my growth is not an abandonment of others. And
Mm.
what that really did for me is gave me permission to exceed my expectations when it came to getting smart about money, when it came to really developing myself as a spender, as a saver, as an investor, all that good stuff, and just really gave myself that courage to move forward in a better direction. So that will say is that was my mindset. And with others, you do have to like kind of put a microscope to your own limiting beliefs, right? What is impeding you from developing yourself and your personal finances? So there you go.
You know what? That's excellent, Brooke. What that also makes me think about, one thing that I used to tell my clients when I was in my financial planning stages was ask the question, can I get back to you? Or make the statement, can I get back to you? Because sometimes either can I get back to you, or maybe, or let me think about it, right? Because every time a decision is put forth in terms of whether to make that financial choice, to your point, whether to charge something or someone's ask you something, is abandoning them. Telling someone, let me think about it, is not abandoning them. It's allowing you to step away from and not making an emotional decision about whatever it is they need from you. And sometimes I find that just doing that, because I mean, most of the time, people who are asking you for money or some sort of financial investment are people you care about. So it's a little hard for you to say no immediately, or, not be there and they have some dire circumstance. But I've
Mm-hmm.
learned that sometimes people figure it out. And immediately, if you don't answer and give it a second, or say, I can do this if you can do that. Because if you're not willing to have as much skin in the game as me to get this problem solved, then why am I helping you?
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. So I think that that was good. And even if it's your own decision about, if I need to purchase something, can I figure out another way? These impulse buys, I think, have a lot to do with that. And so planning the reverse is not, yes, it is about what you save, and what you keep, but also um, putting things away, right, for you from a positive standpoint, and making sure you're adding to your assets as opposed to just worrying about saving or not spending. But how
Mhm.
do you add to those? I think is really important, for people. And it starts from being able to pause and make decisions. It doesn't always have to be an immediate decision.
Absolutely.
I really like that. That's a really great reminder. I think so often we feel the pressure um, to have an answer right away.
Mhm.
And then that feels like we're right. When in reality, right, sometimes the best answer is actually just to go away and think about it for a second, which I can so appreciate. And I think there's so much there that we can mine in terms of mindset. And I love that. And I just have to highlight this thing you said, Brooke, about my growth is not abandonment of others. This is like, oh my gosh, I just had like fireworks went off in my brain. It's
Yeah.
really, really
So
awesome.
many times we're going along to get along. We think people have a certain expectation of us, and if we let them down, that somehow we're letting everybody down ever, and it's like, pause the drama for a second, you know and let's
Says
just
the drama major or
uh,
minor.
that's the funny thing. I was a theater kid growing up. I majored in theater arts administration, so I didn't come. I have a business degree now, but at the time, I didn't start my career thinking I was going to be in personal finance. But look at me now, just as
Look at you
expressive
now.
and theatrical as ever.
That's awesome. That's fabulous. Well, so assuming that we have, and I think this is interesting because we also often say like the first thing you have to do is take stock, right? But I appreciate this thing about we're not just taking stock of our accounts, we're also taking stock of ourselves, of our abilities, our limitations, the things we find challenging. And so I think I want to start to lean a little bit more into some specifics, right? Like what is it that, we have a month left
Mhm.
in this year. What are some strategies that we can implement here in this last month to prepare for the upcoming year?
Mhm. Okay, so I think two strategies come to mind. The first is sometimes it's not the how or the what, it's the who that we need to get locked in, right? Because so much of it we can feel like, oh, it's the pressure is on for us to find the right strategy or to execute in some way. But the reality is that having those relationships in place is important on this journey. Whether it's a professional that you need in your corner, and there's something that I like to call the anti-advocate. And what that is, not the devil's advocate, but the anti-advocate. And that's someone who is in your corner, but is also going to poke holes in your reasoning, is going to ask the tough questions, is going to make you think through the deal before it's done. And I think that that would really propel us as women business owners, as entrepreneurs, when it comes to those relationships that we have. So I think everyone needs an anti-advocate, and if you don't, go find one. And Naomi is mine. Oh, I just appreciate her so much for all of her wisdom. So giving you your flowers now. And then I think a second thing would be just getting keyed in with, what you want to see materialize in the new year, and then kind of just reverse engineering from there, right? So if you're saying to yourself, the experience that I want to have is, maybe I want to have certain expenses paid for, right? I want to go on a trip here. I want to do this experience, and so on and so forth. Really add a number to it, and then work backwards and say, okay, how do I need to, sell XYZ products, or how do I need to ask for the investment so that I can then execute on what I need to get done in the new year. So I think that's important.
Yeah, so what I would say, because as a founder, you do have to be realistic about jockeying back and forth between your business and your personal goals. No one's saying that we are well aware of that. What I think is important, Brooke, you've given a very macro, level of, and I do love start with the end in mind, like where you're trying to go. But now you can go back and say, based on that, I want to set some goals. I want to create a budget, and I want those goals to be smart, specific and measurable, because that anti-advocate that you spoke of can then have something to hold you accountable for. One of the things we do in peer groups, for example, is, it makes it easy when you've been talking to somebody for a couple of months, they kind of know your story, and they say, "Oh, I remember when you said that," and it makes it very organic, and
Mm-hmm.
it also makes it very easy and efficient to go through what it is and poking holes into those things.
Mm-hmm. And then what also ends up happening is that, as you start to have those conversations with your anti-advocate, you start to think like them later, you start saying like,
If they're not available, you can think like, what would
Naomi
they
say
say?
about this, and then you start having that conversation in your head.
It does make it easy, there's some coaching that's easier than others because there are people who already know what they need to do, and they come and they're like, I thought you would say da 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 da. And I'm like, oh, well, that was easy, and but that is where that comes from. So, excuse me, I think that that's important for you to do. And when I say we talk about budget, and I try to let people know that it's a realistic budget. It's one that you can change. A budget, like we say about websites, you don't just put it up and never touch it again. You
Mhm.
you put it in only as a guideline, and then as you go through, you have to make those adjustments. And you need to prioritize saving and investing,
Mhm.
because there will always be something you can spend money on. There is always a bill to pay. And fortunately, like I said earlier, pathways and people passing things down. My grandmother, Maydell Brown, definitely was like, I don't care if it's $10, every paycheck you put some money away,
Mhm.
and I did. And even when years later, yes, it's a couple more zeros behind it, but when we have payroll issues or things, and I'm finding, oh, I got money over here, money over there, it's because I put something away, which goes back to my original statement that if I did not do that,
Mhm.
then where would I be? Because you just never know. One thing is constant is change, and that you really don't have control. What you have are tools and mechanisms that let you adjust to the environments that you can't control. And I
Yeah.
think that's a big deal, as it relates to money
Yeah.
and getting fit for 2026.
Yeah, when you mention budgeting, I think to myself, like budgets are part protection and intention, you know? So when you're talking about saving and investing, the intention is to do those things, right? But if you're talking about other things, making sure that certain expenses are covered, that's protection. So it's a nice marriage between the two. And I will say another thing that I do personally is I name my accounts. And one of my accounts, it's not an emergency fund, it's an opportunity fund. And so do what you gotta do to psych yourself
To
out.
just psych yourself out. Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Hmm. For sure. I definitely agree with naming those. I used to have, well, I used to tell my clients this and I just automatically have it, but now in between and later money,
Mhm.
because it's really important for you to have these buckets, because when it's all in one, and I say this all the time, when it's all in one bucket, you're like, oh, I got a lot of money. But if you break it down, this is my now, go to the movies, get my nails, have some fun money. This is my in between where maybe I got a trip or something a goal that I'm trying to achieve or, kind of save for down the line. And then that later, which is rainy days, also at some point I hope to retire and that kind of thing. And if you put those away and don't think about them, you like, oh, I'm trying to get to this goal, And I've heard, was it Candy Burris? Long time ago, I think when I was just starting on Wall Street, she was like, I wanted to get 100K cash in
Mhm.
my account.
Yeah.
Like that was sort of my thing. And I was like, okay, whoo, far from that, right? And just trying to get to that. And then once you achieve that, you're like, okay, what's the next goal of what you need to do?
Mhm.
But goal setting is imperative to success.
Yeah. And it can sound so like easy and so like, oh yeah, I know goals, but really it is
Oh, it is.
the bedrock.
It is. Some of these things that we have learned in school and in life, yeah, they're kind of for a reason. Yeah, they do work. We actually will be providing for people a framework for this lunch and learn, and we're gonna wind down. Maggie will, but we are gonna provide frameworks so people can line that up, take the guessing out of it. So it's not overly complicated. Like I said, it's not rocket science, but for people to put those things to paper and just start charting it out, you can always print another one if you make a mistake, no worries, or change it. But I hope that it will be helpful to the community, and I know that what you've said it will be helpful. When you talk about why now as it relates to finance, if not now, when? We too often put off what we are supposed to do as it relates to our own personal finances as founders, and we shouldn't. We really need to focus on, I believe cash is queen, as I said earlier, but we really need to focus on how we can preserve ourselves. And if you don't feel safe as a founder and you don't feel comfortable in your ability to pay your bills, you will make rash decisions. So if you ask me, why now? Why not now? And more importantly, it's super important to make yourself feel like the foundation underneath you is strong so that you can go forth and make appropriate decisions without any extra anxiety. It's a great time of year to focus on being financially fit. I know people make New Year's resolutions. I know sometimes people want to wait and see what all their numbers are before they make any commitments. But I think that given the uncertainty of our economy and our environment, particularly if you're in certain urban areas, it's really important to focus on your personal financial fitness. So we wanted to make sure that all of our founders really dug into that, similar to the times of COVID and similar to the times of when any major turmoil is happening, and there's uncertainty. We want our founders to really feel confident that they're stepping into the new year with a plan. That plan may change, as we said before, but you have to have a starting point and a guidepost to help you successfully navigate.
If you had a neon sign, just like that encapsulated your view on this topic, what would that neon sign say?
I would say I will take the phrase that I take from my improv comedy ex experience. It's the phrase yes and, because I am affirming, I am expanding. I'm saying yes and to more, to all of it.
To all of it. Yes, to more. Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Me.
Yeah,
Um,
you.
as it relates to this topic, because I occasionally get this asked this question, I think as it relates to being financially fit for 2026, cash is queen.
Mm,
And I just know that we have different avenues and different things that we can grow our money. Don't be scared to put it into places to grow it. Holding it doesn't really do anything. You should always put it in something that's going to give you some sort of return. But in
thank
order
you.
to do that, you have to build your cash. You have to have it. You have to save it. You have to invest it. But it's all about when it's all said and done, we buy this, we buy that. But when you need to pay for something, you need your cash.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me, ladies. I really appreciate the opportunity to have a platform to talk about something that I'm very passionate about. I'm very passionate about getting women, giving them the freedom and the permission to talk about money, to not stress about it, to really feel empowered in this in this particular area. So thank you.
The power of
Well,
collective intelligence.
There it is.
that's so excellent. Amazing. Well, thank you so very much for your time, Brooke. And as always, it's a real pleasure to have you come on in and hang with us.
Well, thank you so much, ladies. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you.